Welcome to New Directions for Women, a program of the Morris County chapter of the National Organization for Women. My name is Rebecca Lubetkin, and I and the entire crew here are members of this chapter of NOW. We're all volunteers, and we've been doing this for, I would guess, we're in our 19th year. We have an exciting show today. It's not often that we get the chance to talk to a nationally recognized artist. But we have Linda Stein here with us today. She's not only an artist, but she's also a well-known activist, a lecturer, and a performer. Currently, she has a 5-year cataloged exhibition, and I think the catalog is here. It's called The Fluidity of Gender. It's traveling around the country now and through 2015. Oh, great. Through 2015. She's the founding president of Have Art Will Travel, which is also the name of our show, and she's vice president of the Women's Caucus for Art. She's also art editor of the On the Issues magazine. Through her art, she focuses on the causes and effects of bullying and oppression, especially concerning sexism, racism, and homophobia, leading to gender justice. And you can find out more at her website, which is www.lindastein.com, and there it is on the screen. In addition, haveartwilltravel.org. And so I want to welcome you, Linda.
Thank you.
And before we find out about your work, which is what I'm most interested in, I'd just like to ask you, is there a definition of feminist art?
I think feminist art is any art that empowers people, empowers women, but empowers men also. That would be my definition.
That's very interesting. So we're going to put that aside for a minute, and I just want to ask you, have you always been interested in it? I mean, I know you've always been interested in art.
I evolved, and it took me a long time to realize I was a feminist, and not everything clicked at...
Was there a certain click, though?
The clicks came when I was in high school, music and art high school, and said to a teacher, why is there a boys' tennis team and not a girls' tennis team? Because I was very, very athletic, and he looked at me and said, as if I should have known this, don't you know tennis is bad for a girl's heart?
Is that right?
Yes, that's absolutely true. And I didn't put it together. I went out and played 3 hours of tennis with the man that I played with every afternoon. And it took a while until it all added up, the clicks.
But you started early.
I started early. I always loved art. I was going to be a singer, maybe until I made music and art high school, and then at that point
So your audition at music and art was for singing, not for art?
No, it was for art, and then I had to make a decision at that point whether I would go for art or music, and I chose art.
And you taught art as well?
I taught art in high school at Deer Park High School on Long Island for 7 years, and then I was artist in residence for 7 years, and it was there that I first created Have Art Will Travel, which worked with high school, junior high, and elementary school students. We incorporated and then went on from there to become the national organization it is.
Oh, interesting. But I thought you had become a calligrapher.
At some point when I gave up teaching and my artist in residency no longer was in existence, I scrounged around for how I could make some money. And I chose calligraphy because that was a natural for me.
You never studied it?
I never studied it. But everybody looked at my handwriting and said, oh, I'm not going to cash this check. I'm going to save the check. So I figured maybe something was there. And that's how I first started getting into calligraphy. And
so that was a business for you?
It was a very big business. We had 12 administrative staff plus calligraphers. We were considered the premier calligraphy business in Manhattan. And therefore people called us from London and from Poland and from France to do
Advertising
menus
agencies and
just to do their menus, their weddings. We did the wedding for many, many celebrities.
and then somehow you ended that business.
Somehow I needed to do my art because I was working 80 hours a week, probably 40 hours or 50 hours on calligraphy, and probably as much on my art. And at one point I said, enough. I sold off what I could sell off, and I devoted myself entirely to my art, which is a privilege.
It really is.
Yes.
Not many can do that.
Yes.
And your studio was down near the World Trade Center. Is that right?
Yes. So
and you were there?
I was there. I was with my staff. We were working on sculpture. The police came, evacuated us.
Did you know something had happened at that point?
Only when the police came and said, hey, get out of here, and start running. And what we did was we held hands and we ran north and looked behind us.
You didn't know where you were going, though.
We just were told to go north. We ran north on Church Street. My studio is in Tribeca, right in the Ground Zero area, and looked over my shoulder and at one point said, why are they throwing furniture off the trade tower? And then I realized it wasn't furniture.
Oh.
So for a whole day I ran. I saw that my staff had money to go home. We stopped in Soho and we had a sandwich while...
But you could see what was going on at that point.
At one point, my studio manager said, let's keep running north. And I said, no, they bombed the south. I bet they're going to bomb the north next. We're probably safer not to run north. So I thought it was a bomb. We didn't know what it was.
But it was very gray and
smoke was all over the place, and the World Trade Tower came down just like that. And to this day, if I look out at a very tall building, I have to turn my mind off from thinking that someone could shoot that building down. That's the thought I have.
That's scary when you live in a place that has a lot of
tall buildings. Yes.
And is your office still in the same place?
It's a studio and it's in the same place. Yes.
Was it hard to go back?
I didn't go back for a year. I didn't live in my apartment, which is a few blocks away, for 8 months. I didn't do sculpture for a year. I stopped doing sculpture altogether. And my sculpture was very abstract before 9/11. And I stopped for a year, and then when I came back to it, it became vertical, and slowly it took on the form of a figure. And slowly it took on the form of a kind of warrior figure. And I looked at it and said, what am I doing? Warriors. I'm a pacifist. I jog around anthills. And I looked and looked and looked, and I was getting nervous that I was doing warrior kind of figures. And then I thought of Wonder Woman. And when Wonder Woman came to my mind, that set me at ease. Now, that's very different from a lot of artists, because some artists say, this is what I'm doing.
They know where they're going.
This is what I'm doing. The audience can like it or not like it. I have nothing more to say. But I maybe would have been a psychologist if I weren't an artist. And all this intrigued me. And I wondered why I was doing this. And when Wonder Woman came to mind, I said, yes, these are knights of protection. I call them Knight, Knights of Protection, and they, like Wonder Woman, are defenders. And Wonder Woman I chose from 1941 to 1947 only, not past that, because she became more violent and she changed. And the current Wonder Woman is much more sex objectified and more violent, but 41 to 47.
That's interesting.
As
she
created,
she wasn't a sexual.
Well, we could look at her. Here's a poster from from the Alexandria Museum of Art, where my show is now. So, I mean, would you wear a bathing suit if you're going to chase bad guys?
Well,
Probably not.
If I had a magic
So
lasso,
she's a little bit objectified, but not as bad as
she became.
And
Now I'm looking at your vest. Your vest has Wonder Woman on it.
yes,
And it says heroic vest.
yes.
And it's
I
numbered.
started and then numbered, signed, and dated, and I am creating these.
And this side too is Wonder Woman.
This side has Wonder Woman, and if I could be so bold as to turn around.
Look at
this
that.
side, I
Right
think,
here.
is a combination of Lisbeth Salander from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Lady Gaga.
Where's Lady Gaga?
Lisbeth Salander merged with Lady
yeah,
Gaga.
yeah. I see that. That's a lovely vest, though. You make these
I
vests?
make these vests, yes, and I sell them, and I call them now bully-proof vests because, as you know, my traveling exhibit is focused on bullying.
And it has lots of zippers, I see.
Yes, and 5 pockets, 2 inside, 3 outside. I like pockets.
Love them. I love that. So, gender justice. I'm interested, before we talk specifically about your art, is there, in general, for women, gender injustice right now in the art world?
Oh my, yes. Artists, well, let's talk about the general population of women. Women are said to make 77, 78 cents of every dollar a man earns for equal work. In the art world, you know what that figure is?
No.
10 to 30%. Women artists have a much, much harder time of getting into the top galleries. It's about 80% male, 20% female. The higher up you go, the harder it is for a woman to get in. It's changing a little bit, but you still see the
And what
great
about prices?
majority. If you take Louise Bourgeois and you take an artist that is comparable to her, a man, I think the statistics are maybe 10 to 1.
So it's
Louise Bourgeois,
probably
a world-renowned artist, makes a fraction of what a man makes who's considered comparable.
One of the most inequitable fields that I've heard of.
Definitely, definitely. And it's so sad. And women are graduating in higher numbers than men. So here they are in their art class, they shine, they're the star of their art class, and they graduate and they hit the glass ceiling right away. And you know, if you have a blind study, and I've been asked to be a juror in many shows, if you have a juror without knowing the sex of the applicant, it's usually 50-50, maybe 51% female. As soon as you put a name on that application, it drops to 1/3 female, 2/3 male.
And you know, I have seen those kinds of studies done for essays, for poems, for fiction. Same thing. You submit 2 of them, they're identical. One has a male name and one has a female name, and they are judged very differently.
Yes.
It's not only in art.
Yes,
Yeah.
but what I also like to add when I give my lecture is that women don't ask or demand as much as men. 90% of the op-ed letters to the editor are written by men.
Right. We don't put ourselves out there.
We do not put ourselves out there as much as we should. And it's especially when we have a Q&A after my lecture and the guys raise their hands. And then I say, well, look, it's happening right before us right now. And then
it demonstrates.
And then the women will raise their hands.
Have you personally experienced any of this inequity?
Yes, yes, I certainly have. As a young woman, I think it was very hard to be taken seriously as an artist. And Once you graduate, it just becomes much harder. Yes, I have experienced it.
But somehow you persevered.
That's in my nature. I've always been a perseverer, yes.
And you managed to eat and to
Yes, but
have a
it's
place
harder.
to live.
It's harder for a woman, yes.
It is, especially a woman on her own.
Yes, I'm sure you know that yourself.
Without backup, yeah.
Yes.
Do women differ in the subject matter that they choose and the media that they choose, or do you see them running the whole gamut as men do?
Oh, absolutely, running the whole gamut. You give a woman a chance and she will paint everything and anything.
Mm-hmm. Or sculpt.
Or sculpt or photograph. I mean, there really is. It's very hard to say a woman did this or a man did that. Jean Arp with all his curves. I mean,
that's a
right,
female thing to do, yeah.
Right.
So tell us about your art, and this is what I'm excited about. Yeah, I know that you're in this 5-year exhibition, and it's going all over the country, and I assume that you're going with it, or you're...
Yes. What happens is that the exhibition is crated, 1,300 pounds of crates, and it goes from one institution to another. And I'm invited to come out and give a lecture and work with a collaborative performance. And the performance I find the most exciting, because then I get to really work with the local people in the community. If it's at the Alexandria Museum now in Louisiana, I work with townspeople. It came from Joplin, Missouri, at the Spiva Center for the Arts. So I worked also with local people, but many colleges and universities where I work with students. So we choose, or they help me choose, 2 to 10. At Muhlenberg College in Pennsylvania, we had 10 students that did 2 performances at the reception. 5 students did it at the beginning, where 4 put on
Oh, well, you need
my
to show
wearable
us so
sculpture.
that we know.
Well, here's one student doing it at the Alexandria Museum of Art.
Now she has
This is
on...
Mackenzie. She has on a leather sculpture. She has on this sculpture.
So these are wearable sculptures.
Yes, there are 13 sculptures in the exhibition, and 4 of them are wearable. Some of them, as you see here, are torsos that are on a pedestal.
What are they made of?
Some are leather, and some are collaged Wonder Woman comics that I change, and I change the blurbs. So
oh, look at this! Wow. So, and there's metal.
There's metal. There's
zippers.
Now look at this here. Your audience would think this is bullets, but actually it's CO cartridges from seltzer bottles. So I have some fun with what I'm doing.
So oh, look at this one.
So this is a collage with Wonder Woman comics that I've changed the blurbs. So
you changed the blurbs.
Right, to say what defines bravery, what makes a hero.
But how do you get it to be durable so people can try it on? And
yes, well, I acrylicize it, and it becomes washable. I make it so it's even
it's washable?
It never had to be washed so far, but it is washable. It's an acrylicized surface on top of the archival inks that I use to do the collage.
So that people come and they're hanging.
They're hanging in the all around the exhibit, and the exhibit is usually up for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever is the choice of the university or museum, and my schedule. And so the exhibit is there, The Fluidity of Gender, sculpture by Linda Stein, and then I give a lecture, which is called The Chance to Be Brave, the Courage to Dare. And that's what I talk about, the courage to assert oneself, the courage to feel manly if you're a man, without bullying people less. The chance to be brave, to stick up to an Arnold Schwarzenegger type character who calls his opponents girly men. The chance to be brave by seeing young girls in Iran or Afghanistan going to school in spite of the fear of having acid thrown in their face for wanting to be educated.
Now, just donning this sculpture changes people?
Well, what happens is, I spoke with Mackenzie here in Alexandria, and I said, Mackenzie, did you prepare the dance that you gave? Wearing my sculpture? She did a dance. She created a dance. Did you rehearse it before? She said, no, I didn't rehearse it. Some do. Some go into the gallery, try on the sculpture, and create their music and their dance, and it's about masculinity and femininity and bullying. Mackenzie said, no, she didn't. She said, I was going to have it much softer and much more feminine. But after hearing you give the lecture, Linda, I realized that women can be bold and strong. So Mackenzie started out very soft and got stronger and stronger. And the audience, we must have been about 130 people standing around. We felt her getting stronger. It really was terrific. It was great. And then, so 3 people performed there, one of whom was Catherine Piers, who is the executive director of the museum. And she, having been a theater person before she became a museum director, created 4 vignettes. And in between each vignette, she twirled around. Now remember, she's wearing my sculpture. She was wearing a Wonder Woman sculpture. And she did vignettes about gender justice that were just perfect. For instance, she said, she started her poem this way, so the audience and the kids especially really got to it. She said, yo, coach, aren't I as good as that fella over there? How come I'm sitting on the bench?
Sojourner Truth.
How come? Right, ain't I a woman?
Yeah.
Wait, well, she's saying, ain't I as good as any man?
Right.
Well, then she twirled around and she said, hey, boss, he's making $10,000 more than me. How come? It was terrific.
So basically, they're using your art, but it generates art from them.
Yes, and different people do. The third man was a doctor in town, and he was into yoga and meditation, and he had on one of the Wonder Woman avatars, and he created, we're calling them Stein gigs, gender improvisational gathering, the kids have termed it. And he created something which was like meditation and yoga, and he had the whole audience do Om 3 times. I mean, it was fascinating.
Do they prepare that beforehand?
Well, Mackenzie didn't prepare. She changed it right after the lecture. The executive director did write the poem before, and the man did write his poem beforehand. So it was, some prepare, some don't. At Muhlenberg College, these 10 students put on the sculpture, crawled on the floor, made these kinds of bodily movements that signified either masculinity, femininity, and really what I'm talking about is the continuum between the binaries of masculinity and femininity.
That's why you call it the fluidity.
The fluidity of gender. That's really what my work is all about.
That's on a continuum.
We are not either all masculine or all feminine. We are a composite of all gender presentations.
Are any of your works in permanent collections?
Yes. In fact, there's a piece that was cited at outdoors at the Portland State University. It's the Central Sculpture Commission at Portland State University, the outdoors. Smith College has a piece. There are many places that have it.
So now you're traveling. Do you have a chance to do any of your art while you're traveling with this exhibit?
In between traveling, I do my art. Yes. And speaking of gender, I'm working on a different series now where I'm trying to scramble gender. So I might have faces of females and bodies of males come together in a painting. So I'm doing some paintings now. I'm never doing just one thing. In the show, there are also videos. There's a 6-minute documentary of Wonder Woman, as I see Wonder Woman.
Did you produce
in the show? And I produced that. Yes.
So this is multimedia.
It's a multimedia installation. Yes.
But
yes. But I love going around the country and meeting people. Josie from Joplin, Missouri, came to the lecture at the Spiva Center for the Art and said, in the 10 years I've been here, you're the first feminist that I've heard, and I'm so glad you're here. So people seem to enjoy my talk.
And what topics seem to resonate with them?
Well, I go over a good many topics, a lot of statistics, and people are amazed at the statistics.
Like what you told us before?
Yes, and 11%, even with the progress of women, 11% of the top magazine covers feature women. 89% is male. We have now 17% of our Congress female. 17%. I mean, my gosh.
We're behind a lot of the world.
We're behind, yes. And I told you about galleries. That's just terrible. I mean, there was a point the Museum of Modern Art had a permanent collection where 94% of the paintings and sculpture in that permanent collection was male.
And that's still true?
How does that go on? I think they changed it. It's probably went up a little bit. Not by much.
This has been so interesting. And I'm really glad that in all your travels here, you happened to be in New York for a short time, because that's how we were able to get you. But we could go on talking. I hope that we'll be able to show some of the beautiful artwork that you do. I love a vest. They're beautiful. And I understand that you make them and sell them in addition to what you have.
Yes. So and everything goes, 20% of the sale price goes to Have Art Will Travel, which is the nonprofit and the umbrella organization that supports the work that goes around. I mean, the colleges and museums
and all
contribute, but there is support with press, with various things.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. We are